Hey, this is Mo Lunsford at Union Grove Lumber Studios.
And this is the Shed Geek. We want to welcome you to today's episode.
Welcome to this week's episode of the Shed Geek podcast. I am Susan the Shedgal, and I am very excited for today's interview. I have Mr. Atlee Stewart from Burnett Affordable Buildings. Welcome, Atlee. How are you?
I'm doing excellent on this Monday.
Wonderful. Let's talk about Burnett Affordable Buildings. How long have they been in business, and where are you located at?
So the business has been here since I think 2008. Roger Wilson was the original founder of the business. He started the business in his backyard right across town here. And from all the stories I've heard, and I wasn't there, but from the stories I heard, he built the first one himself. And then he done the delivery and everything. You know, he just started it just starting his own business. And so he built it from there to closer to what it is today. And then in 2017, my father-in-law, Aaron Burnett, bought the business out. And he is in the RTO business, River Country Rentals. And he bought the business out to secure secure the future for contract for his RTO company. And so that was when I came in the picture, and he came to me approximately 9 months before buying the business and asked me if I would be interested in trying to help operate the business. And I said no at the start. I was like, I don't know nothing about it. I've never been in sheds. I've never been anything to do with it. And so the honest truth is we talked about it and prayed about it for 9 months before completely committing to do it. And so anyway, from 2017, here we are today. We went a long ways down the road, and it's been an eventful journey. Some fun days and some not so fun days. I didn't say any bad days. I just said fun days, not so fun days.
Yeah, I had heard that story before, and I appreciate the fact that when you told it to me before and you told it to me now, and when he came to you, you said no. It wasn't no is a complete sentence, and yet through reflection and praying, and you came to the decision to come on board. But I love the fact that you were just like, no, no. So let's back up. Where were you born and raised?
So the business is here in Muldrow, Oklahoma, and I was born and raised in Vian, Oklahoma, which is 30 minutes from here back to the west, right on I-40. We're on the biggest travel corridor of America, right here in I-40, and just across the state line out of Arkansas. Fort Smith, Arkansas is our next door neighbor. But I was born and raised right here. Grew up at Vian, and my dad has still to this day, has basically a tire shop is what we called it. Tires, brakes, front ends on all the, just cars, trucks, light duty stuff. It's not in the big equipment. But he's been in that. He started that job when I was less than a year old, and ended up 11 years later buying the business out from the owner then. And so once I grew up and I got old enough to, I started working my summers and Saturdays with Dad. And I did that until I finished school. When I finished school, I went to work for him full time. And I did that for 3.5 years. And man, me and Dad had an excellent relationship and still do to this day, but it was not what I wanted to do. I didn't enjoy it. I had some growing up to do. It was really part of the story, and I didn't know it at the time. But it was my dad's business. He needed help, and he was out, test driving customers' cars back and forth. Well, I just felt the responsibility when a customer showed up and Dad was out of the office at the moment. I felt like I was supposed to talk to them and help them. But I was an 18-year-old kid that was not interested in talking to people. I could do the work out in the shop, but I I struggled so bad with just talking to customers. Anyway, so that rocked on a little while for 3.5 years. And I was looking for something else to do. Didn't know what I was going to do, but I had a friend that worked at the local, we call it REC, Rural Electric Cooperative. And they were it was a lady friend, and she worked in the office there. And she heard I was interested in a job. And so she contacted me and said they had an opening as a warehouse assistant there at the co-op. And so I went and applied for the job and rocked on a little while, and I got the job. And it's kind of funny looking back, because the manager that I talked to, he's like, he was interviewing me. He's like, what do you want to do with your life? What you looking for in a career, you know? And I'm like, I don't know. I just know I don't want to do what I'm doing right now. And something else that's funny.
Not what I'm doing right now.
Something else that's funny that I look back at is he asked me that day, said, do you want to be a lineman? Well, the honest truth is I didn't know what a lineman was, other than I'd heard of a lineman in football. Is the only thing I'm like, I don't really know. And so I just want to try something different. And so he gave me the job, and I worked there for 2.5 years in the warehouse, just cleaning trucks, stocking shelves, on and on and on. And then there was opportunity opened up as an apprentice. And by that time, I knew what a lineman was, of course.
Of course, yes.
So, I apprenticeship position came open, and I took it, or I applied for that and got the position, and went in and done my 5-year apprenticeship program and got my journeyman's license. I have a journeyman lineman's license today, and I worked power lines for 12 years.
Wow.
Worked ice storms, tornadoes. I never did go on a hurricane storm, but that's just the stuff I done. And it was just, I loved it. Yeah, I looked at it as it was an opportunity that not everybody got to do something like that. And I absolutely loved the job. I loved the people that I worked with. It was a great group of guys. And that was the reason. And it was, like I said, it had good benefits with the job. I had everything you could ask for, good retirement. And that was my reason when my father-in-law came to me and said, would you like to work for me to do this job? And that's when I said no. So why would I go do something like that when I'm rocking along, having a good time?
Right.
Anyway.
And we talked about that a little bit before when you told me that story when we first met. Did you enjoy being a lineman? I mean, not out in the middle of an ice storm. I get that there's times that you're not going to enjoy it, but did you enjoy the actual work? And
yes, I loved it. The ice storm, no, it wasn't fun. It was just one of the things that just went along with the job. And when you left your territory to go work another ice storm like that, you work anywhere from 14 to 16 hours every day. And of course, when you're in an ice storm, it automatically tells you that it's cold. So it's cold, it's wet, it's nasty, and that's just part of the job. But no, overall, I love the job, and I didn't want to leave. But opportunity, I had to look at the opportunity down the road, and there was different things. There's a lot of hazards, if you want to say it that way, with that job. There was multiple key people that died, that were killed, not necessarily next to me. Some of them was on jobs that I was associated with, and I wasn't there to, and particularly watched anybody get hurt, but it happened. And those were things that really played into the equation on why I ended up quitting, because just different things happened in the last year there that just made me really think about my family, and if I want the rest of my
those are long days. And I remember when I was down in Texas, in fact, it was that trip, and then I flew up here and met with you. The kids and I stopped and saw the tornado damage, north of Fort Worth. And I've never seen it's not the same seeing it in person as it is seeing it on TV. And then I went down to Canton, Texas, and they had a bunch of problems and rain and hail and all the electrical trucks coming. I mean, like just one after the other after the other. And I remember thinking, wow, they left home this morning and they may be home. Who knows? It's really, I think linemen and line gals, I guess you would call it, don't get enough, really don't get enough credit, but we desperately need them in
Absolutely.
in desperate times. So interesting. So you begged your father-in-law for a job, and he finally said yes. Let me ask you this. So you've been married. What's your wife's name? Melissa, and you've been married a couple of years, right?
19 to be exact.
19 to be exact. How many kids do you have?
4. I got 2 girls, 2 boys. My girls are the oldest. They're 17 and 16. And then I got a 10-year-old and a 6-year-old boy. And so.
Well, I would imagine that, and I did meet Melissa the one time briefly. I imagine that she likes the fact that you can be home at night, unless you're going to the Shed Expo or something. But I mean that it's probably less risk doing what you're doing than in that job. Yeah.
There was a lot of nights that I wasn't home, a lot of weekends that I had to work. In the job I had, I was on call for 7 days every 6 weeks.
Wow.
So every 6 weeks he was on call for 7 days, 24 hours a day. And so it seemed like 6 weeks is a long time apart, but when you're on call every 6th week, it comes around really fast.
Oh yeah. So like you could literally so when you like that, you could get called out in the middle of the night, or you just got to sleep, or that's rough. But I mean, when I'm thinking about it, we have to have those people handy, but I think they don't get enough credit. They don't get enough credit.
So the thrill that I got out of working out at night like that, because it was always fun when a storm would roll through. No, it wasn't fun when the storm came through, but it was fun to be out there at 3 o'clock in the morning and you just go to turn somebody's power on and you throw the fuse in and you suppose that they were all in bed asleep, because that's what most people do at 3 o'clock in the morning, but they forgot to turn all the light switches off the evening before. And you turned every light they had on at 3 o'clock in the morning. It was just, I don't know, we just laughed about that.
Yeah.
Funny.
And on one hand, they were probably like, darn it. But on the other hand, they were probably like, thank you. Let there be light.
Yeah. We'd turn them all on whatever time of the morning. We just throw the switch in and fixed them up.
Yeah. Well, let's transition over to more the shed industry, because now you're on board 6.5 years ago, and of course that was prior to COVID. It's like we have 3 sections in our life: before COVID, during COVID, and now, and that's normal. I would imagine it appears that the company has grown quite a bit since you guys, since your father-in-law bought the company. And so what's the biggest change that you've seen, just since the day you started to now, as far as, facility or
I don't know where to start really on that. I guess one of the bigger changes that I've seen in here is just, and this, I don't know if we're supposed to shout out to Shed Suite or to anybody like that, but there was a big change for us in here. Jason Graver's my friend. I've talked to him, text him anytime I need to, basically. But that was a big change for us here. There was the previous owners, they used RTO Pro, and there's nothing wrong with RTO Pro, but it's just different program. And it was a big change for us to go to Shed Suite and begin to use it, and just the integration with your dealers and being able to use it for the whole system. It was a big improvement, I guess I would say, one of the bigger ones that we've done.
And how long ago was that you brought Shed Suite on?
So that was it was July 1st of 2019 is when we started with Shed Suite. We went for you
So
know,
5 years.
years previously with, you know, using the RTO Pro version that we had then.
Mhm.
But,
Yeah, and so I'm always one for whatever I have, whatever tools I have are acceptable to me. I've always been that way. When I was in insurance, other dealers would complain about, oh, the system, the system, the system. But I have to say, coming to the shed industry, it was very archaic in for my past life, and I'm so glad to see that in the last 5 years, there has been, I mean, not just little changes in the technology, but really, really
yeah,
big improvements and big changes that just make things, nothing will ever be perfect. It doesn't have to be perfect. Just has to be more usable, and it seems like stuff is saving time. Uh, but technology is a big deal in this industry because like when I started, so once a month, we had our paper applications that they would sign, and I would scan it to the plant where they would then input everything. So now we're both doing the same work twice. And then once a month,
yeah.
I'd exchange those for my commission check, and it just, even at the time, it seemed very behind the times, yet it was just the way it was. And now everything seems to be really much smoother, much easier. In fact, my son, who is going to be running our Phoenix operation, he went out to work with April at 5 Star Sheds, and they're putting their sheds on our lot out there. And so my son, his team will be selling them. So he's training with April, and he calls me and he's like, "You are not going to believe how easy this system is compared to what we had to use." And I'm like, "Oh, I know." He just had, he's been out of it for 3 years. So just in the 3 years of the
Yeah.
technology is really changing.
We've had so many changes and adjustments that we've made just growing with Shed Suite, even, that just you get into it and thought, oh, this will work great for this part. And then the longer you're with it and the more you learn about it, and also the more that Shed Suite puts into their program, there's just, more and more transitions and changes that you can make, and eliminate so much paperwork is the number one.
Yes.
We eliminated piles of paper. We're saving trees, and just piles of paperwork that was eliminated here, and time in addition to that. And, and it might not be so much, out in the shops and everything else, but just in our office here, just eliminated so much unnecessary time.
Greetings from the Shedgal. As I delve deeper into the shed and steel building industries, I am thrilled to establish connections with friends who offer amazing products, such as Wendell Hochstetler, the owner of VersaBend Tube Bender. At VersaBend, they thank you for your interest in their tube bender. The VersaBend is designed to bend 2-inch, 2 1/4 inch, and 2 1/2 inch square tubing, as well as 2 by 3 inch rectangular tubing in either 14 or 12 gauge. Powered by a robust 5 horsepower unit, it features 2 adjustable stops for setting your desired degree or pitch. Priced at just $19,500 and shipped from Abbeville, South Carolina, you can secure your VersaBend with a down payment of only $1,500. Contact them today to check availability and get placed on their order list. VersaBend is a family-owned business dedicated to providing an easy-to-operate bender made with off-the-shelf components. A unique feature of their bender is that it offers a full radius bend, unlike the double crushed bends produced by most other machines. Want to see it in action? Visit their website at www.csecarport.supply or give them a call at 864-446-3645.
Our first lot, and I've said this on here before, we had no source of power there for like 18 months. I mean, how we survived, I don't have any idea, but we didn't have the option of electronic signatures. So what that meant was when someone would come in and they would give me their down payment, which was on a form that they signed because I couldn't run it, I would set up a second follow-up appointment to get their signatures. And then I would go home that night, get all the paperwork done, print it out, meet them and sign it, and then scan it. In 1 year, just in sales 1 year, that paperwork filled up a 4-drawer file cabinet that happened to be in my bedroom because my house was small. And I was like, this cannot continue, because I wasn't going to leave it, at the lot in case someone broke in and people's personal information. But it was the craziest thing. And now I'm even looking back, like how we did as well as we did in a 2-step process, but customers didn't know any better. But I'm like, oh gosh, these days so I'm just, August 1st is the 7-year anniversary of when I started selling sheds. So it's like, this isn't 40 years ago that it was, I was walking uphill both ways to school in the snow. Yeah, I love the technology. One of the things I've noticed too about your team is the longevity. Is that you have folks that were with Roger and the prior owner, and that in and of itself sometimes goes sideways. Like, oh, new owner, they don't, employees don't get treated well or don't like the change, and then they go work in a tire shop or they become linemen or whatever. But you've had a lot of longevity. Why do you think that is?
Thankfully, the guys that we've had that came here, they had experience in it. That was here previously, they were already experienced, and we've been able to work together and just keep pushing on. And they may not like me, but they ain't said so yet for the most part.
Well, I haven't even heard any rumors behind the scenes that they don't like you. I think you'd know by now.
Keep fishing, if you find something.
I'll have my people call your people. No, but there's some to be said for that the longevity and it feels like, I don't even necessarily like to use the word family, because sometimes people think that's a negative connotation. I don't mean that at all. Like it's just cohesive, where everybody's got their roles but they work together. And I had asked one of the guys earlier if he could do something for me. And I'm the type person, if I want it done, I'll just do it myself before I'll even ask. And it's like, oh, absolutely no problem. And I was like, whoa, like, it's not a, us against them situation. And I'm not speaking of just the shed industry or at all, but just business ones.
It shouldn't be that way. In my opinion, I love it to when we can all just chip in and help each other. I mean, that's what I'd love to promote that. I'm not saying I'm always, I feel like I lack a lot of times in clarity, and I've learned that in the last year, it's kind of come around that I understand. I feel like I'm as clear as need to be on a lot of things, but I've learned, even my wife has told me a few times, that you didn't say it like that. Well, that's what I meant.
Right. Yeah.
You learn, people, and I've been thankful that the people that are here have just, they know me well enough that they figure out what I mean, I guess, by what I've said at times.
Right.
So
right.
I've seen things. I listened to a lot more podcasts in the past year and a half. I'll tell you the first one that I really started thinking about, and it wasn't even a podcast that I knew of. He may not even have a podcast, but Steve Byler spoke at Shed Expo 2 years ago, I think. Man, he made me think so much about, he talked about clarity. That's just what he kept saying. And being clear to your people, and it brings so much more unity, and they know what you want, they know what you need, they know what needs to be done. It's just made me think a lot more about it. And there's a science to leadership, and I was too dumb to know that previously. But and I sure ain't got it figured out. But there's things that can be done to help your leadership and to bring your people together. And I feel like I got a lot of work to do, and I'm interested because it made me think so much more that there's things to learn in this, things that can make you better.
Mm-hmm. I agree always. And I think you're not giving yourself credit, because I heard you just say, I was dumb. we're only born with the knowledge. We know nothing, and it's like searching out the information we need to get the job done. Is that
Well,
I see you doing that. That's what you do, and that's smart. It isn't because I know there's others in the industry that are struggling with that, and I've seen some situations where the hierarchy is like you're the plant manager and I have my role, but I've got to go to two people to have a conversation with you, and that is the most ridiculous thing in the world to me. Like, because it puts people in these spots of. It's just so weird, and it's such a waste of time.
yeah,
It's such a waste of time for, it's just no. I think you're running a very wonderful operation. I know when I went through the plant and toured around, and it was very impressive. And I've seen, not a ton of plants from different companies, but numerous plants for several different companies, and each one has their more positive things or that sort of thing. And I've seen much smaller and bigger, but it is, boy, it looks very lean, as far as organized, and your folks seem happy. And I'm not kidding you, and I'm not going to name the company because that would go sideways real quick. But I was at a plant last year, and the people that worked there were just you could just tell they were just. And I asked a guy, "Hey, how's it going?" Because this is me. And he's like, "Oh, not really very good." And I was just like, "Oh." And then what happened was, there was this huge, those blowhorn things, and I literally jumped a foot in the air because the gal screamed into the loudspeaker, "Break sober." And it wasn't like break sober, like saying it nicely. And I was like, I said to her, what are you doing? Like, well, they don't come back from break on time. And I'm like, I don't know how you were taught to motivate, but I don't think it's talking that way through a loudspeaker that's going to work real well. And, he acted just exactly how he was being treated, with absolutely no respect. And he could have cared less about that job. And I think he was there about 20 more minutes before he quit. But there's definitely a cause and effect of leadership and the relationships, that you have.
there's a lot of stuff out there, Susan, that's valuable for leaders to listen to. But one that I've really enjoyed listening to and would highly encourage people to listen to it that are in leadership positions is the John Maxwell leadership. I've listened. They got two different podcasts. They have an executive leadership podcast and then just a regular John Maxwell leadership podcast. And those guys are amazing. I love to go listen to them. There's so much value out there for people to listen.
And I wasn't texting. I was making a note of that because I love that. I'm just every day I'm trying to learn something that I can share with other people because there's so many tidbits. So COVID was an interesting time. We all know that sales skyrocketed for everybody. There was problems getting materials, production problems, delays. We get that. We survived. We're here, right?
Yep.
I hear a lot of reasons why so and so is less expensive down the road, or this and that, or this and that. I think that the times are just different now, and I've said it and I'll say it again. I could not replicate what I did 7 years ago. If I did the same exact things today, I would not have the same results. I don't think times are necessarily harder. I think it's just different. What's the biggest thing that you're seeing that, because you guys offer a lot of products that there's still companies that don't offer those things, the greenhouses so you've got a good set of products to offer. What do you see as the biggest challenges in 2024 that obviously were not related to COVID, but are different maybe from before COVID?
We didn't sell that many buildings that were, you knew where basically people was going to live in.
Yeah.
We sold sheds, and we sold big sheds, and I'm not saying people didn't live in them, because I know
Right.
but
Right.
there's so much more of a demand after COVID. And it's just like, you go farther and farther into, seems like going into the tiny home thing on a lot of things. And I'm not real excited about it. Maybe that's not the way to look at it. There's just so much more detail that goes into it. It takes so much more time. There's so much more involved in that line of work.
Yes.
We still sell a lot of sheds, and I hope to continue and go even more, stronger back into sheds. I don't know how long this stage will be, that people continually, if it's an economy thing. I mean, I know that has a big play into it as well, but that's one change that I see out there a lot.
More requests and more demands for the tiny homes. Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I'm hearing it, and I'm seeing it, from others as well. That is interesting. And again, it's not that we didn't sell them before. But yeah, that is interesting. And I'm wondering, I'm almost wondering, and this isn't for necessarily your dealers or any other companies, but I'm wondering if a lot of people aren't marketing them. I don't know. I don't know if there's any correlation between the way they're being marketed, or if and it'll be something I'll have to look into to see.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah.
You feel like that really plays into the equation, that there are some other, local companies, and not just, I say local, but there's a lot of companies that are really marketing that option. So therefore, our customers, our we follow suit to, like, well, that's what they're doing, so that's what we need to do. But I've talked with you enough to know that you don't altogether go that route, just because that's what we don't want to follow in everything that we do. Let's do something different.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Yeah. So I don't know if you've seen, I'm going to give a shout out to Kyton. He owns Hexapod, which is a new company. I don't know if you've seen his hexagon shaped sheds.
I think I seen a post that you did the other day that had something.
Yeah. It and I thought, oh my gosh, that, I'll say young man, he's a grown adult, but most people are young to me. And I'm like, he's on to something, because he's going to lead the pack. Now we know there's going to be, in fact, someone mentioned to me yesterday, hey, I'm going to talk to my builder and see if they can design it. And I'm like, oh, here we go already. But boy, he's really leading the pack on that. It's an incredible building, and they're portable, and then they can also be built on wheels. And I'm like, boy, I'll bet you 24 months from now, everybody in the industry is going to have seen and heard about his product, or those that follow him and copy him. And they are really cool.
I'll say one thing, Susan, about following someone else, and that don't necessarily pertain to the hexagon deals you're talking about, but I've seen ideas with other shed companies that I'm like, oh, that's the new rage. Well, that's really hitting. That looks good, And we've done some of them, and believe it or not, I've got some ideas that we done that are still sitting on lots, because it really wasn't as big a hit. It does look good at times, and you think, well, that's the thing that's fixing to really sell, but that's kind of one of them, follow the other guy, and you really don't know if it works or not.
Yeah, exactly. And I almost, and I'm not saying for you, but I've heard it from other people in the industry that they thought the metal sided, the stick framed metal sided buildings would just be the biggest hit ever. And that it's not that they don't sell, but it's not the biggest hit that people tend to still like the nice siding. And I thought that was interesting, because I too thought, oh, that would be so great to be able to offer that.
So I'll give you a little tidbit on that part so when I came here in 2017, I don't have exact numbers, but I can tell you that for a few years, wood frame with the metal siding was close to 50% of our business.
Mhm.
And it was that way, like I said, for a few years. I don't know what changed it altogether, but for sure through COVID, and then maybe it's the idea of you have more options in the wood side of buildings.
Mhm.
And then one thing I'll say is metal went way up during that time as well.
Oh,
But
yeah.
it began to transition, and we went down to as low as between 15 and 20% on our metal sided buildings selling versus the wood. And today, I'm going to say we're at 25% the metal,
Yeah.
but it
Yeah.
used to definitely be different than that.
Yeah, that is interesting. I mean, there's so many things that, it could be pricing, it could be marketing, yeah, that's so interesting. Having not had those options myself before, it was just, we just had to get scrappy with whatever we could offer and it worked out just fine. But yeah, I look at the options, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that would be so great. But then at the end of the day, would it have would it have increased sales, or would maybe just part of the people have bought something different? It's
Yeah.
definitely hard
So
to say. Yeah.
the sales points on the metal ones is there. You don't have to repaint them in 5 or 10 years. It's there forever. We use a fiberglass door that's going to last you forever. It's not going to rust or anything like that.
Have you been considering adding a line of greenhouses to your brand? At Cold Spring Enterprises, we have the perfect solution for you. By incorporating greenhouse products into your sales location, whether you're a do-it-yourself dealer or a manufacturer supporting multiple shed lots, you can expand your customer base. We offer easy-to-assemble greenhouse kits that will simplify the process of adding greenhouses to your lot. You can choose between 2 basic styles, an economy style and an A-frame style. We can ship a standard 8x12 greenhouse kit directly to your shed lot or manufacturing location. These kits include all the necessary components for assembly, except for the wainscoting or clear panels, door, and fan. However, we can assist you in connecting with the supplier for these items. Moreover, we also offer negotiable bulk pricing for multiple units. To help you get started, we are pleased to offer an exclusive discount through the Shed Geek podcast. You can receive an 8x12 economy or A-frame style greenhouse, complete with wainscoting or clear panels, a screen door, and fan. The pricing for a complete one-time display unit starts at $2,195 for an economy style and $2,545 for an A-frame style, excluding shipping and tax. For more information and to request bulk unit pricing, please visit www.shedgeek.com/cold-spring-enterprises and fill out your information, and someone will be in touch with you as soon as possible. Or simply go to the Shed Geek newsletter and click on the greenhouse picture to fill out your information. Thank you for considering our greenhouse kits. We are excited to work together to bring greenhouse kits to your line of products.
I was talking to a guy this morning from a siding company, and we were talking about how there are some sidings out there that have horrible wicking. Where we saw it. I've seen it all over different places, and that theirs doesn't do that. And that it's amazing within the industry, the different products that can be used. That, I mean, honestly, I haven't seen a shed in all my travels that isn't a good shed. I mean, everyone is just built. Every company builds it a little bit differently, but I mean, for the most part, they're all really good sheds. Compared to the metal building. You remember? No, you're probably too young, but we all used to have the metal buildings in our backyard with the doors that we could barely open. And, that was what our option was. Oh, those things were horrific.
Before my time, but you can buy those from Sears and Roebuck, I think.
Yeah. Or maybe even Montgomery Ward back in the day, who knows? But, yeah, very, it's interesting how quickly this industry has progressed, and it just blows my mind. When I was out with Jeremy Martin at Cabin Connections in Kentucky, I took Miss Kayla out there, and it's like shed lot, shed lot, shed lot, shed lot. But it wasn't only shed lots, it was the size of these shed lots, where in Arizona and Washington, we just don't see those. We just, they're the kind of the run of the mill shed lots. And Although there is a company that their number one dealer is in a town of 10,000 people in Arizona, and year before last, he did $5.6 million off of a lot that has, on average 80 buildings at all times. So there is a direct correlation between he's able to attract people there. But it's so interesting how, those dealers out in Kentucky that I saw, they aren't all starving. They're all selling buildings, and it's just they're so much bigger than what I had seen. And Kayla and I were, the first time my eyes were this big, like, what? Like, this is incredible. So, I was just used to 8 or 10 on my lot. And
Yeah.
if I had 15 or 20, I was really having a party. And I think those days are passing. What are you seeing as far as, I know some of your dealers display lots, and I haven't seen them all yet, but I know some of them are very large, very large. Are you seeing that, customers are appreciating the fact that they have more variety to actually choose from and see?
So one thing I'll say is the dealer that has much more inventory, there's generally a reason, and we have some boundaries in place that that we're trying to work to hold X amount of inventory on a lot, and it's based on sales. The more capability you have of selling, the more inventory we're going to put on your lot. And so,
and that totally makes sense. And I've seen that in many other companies that you kind of have to earn it.
yes,
Which, I mean, it totally makes sense. And I think we selfishly as dealers forget that the manufacturers, it's not as much as it would be nice that you were just a bottomless pit of money. At the end of the day, someone's money is sitting on that property. And, we forget that. So I think that's pretty common in the industry.
Yeah, we got in a tough, if you want to say a tough place, because after COVID, sales didn't do what we always wanted them to do. Come the next spring, we expected them to take off, and they didn't do so as much. So we was building inventory just like we always done, and so we got, we had ended up with excessive inventory, so we had to try to sell off and reduce some of that.
Yeah.
And that's when we started. Previously, we didn't have a big problem with having excessive inventory, and so we had really geared up during the COVID run, probably alongside with everybody else, because we was running 8 and 10 weeks out, and that was a big deal to us. We wasn't used to or accustomed to running that kind of time frame, and so we'd geared up and was running the full force, and things slowed down, and we just kept hammering away for a little while, and we realized real soon that we had to do something different. That bottomless pit that he was talking about was going to find the bottom of it pretty soon.
And you're not alone. I mean, that happened with a lot of companies, because it's definitely the COVID drop off was definitely a real thing. What do you, if you were to give advice to a brand new dealer, and there's probably some people that are listening that are new, what advice can you give them from the manufacturing side, that might help them be successful?
Just my first thoughts is they need to have someone in place, and you might know where I'm going here, but they need a manager behind them, a sales manager that's knowledgeable, that can take them places, if that makes sense. Because if you don't, and you don't have the mentality to make something go, and the ability, possibly previous entrepreneurship or something like that you're geared and know how to make something go today, you're not going to just set sheds out on the corner and do what you did 5 years ago, or even 2 years ago, for that matter. I'm not saying it won't work at all, but you better not count on it for your primary source of living.
For the most part, it won't work.
It's not.
But yeah, yeah. Well, and I'm just thinking, like, if you said to me, hey, Susan, I'm going to make you the manager of the shop, we would have the biggest inefficient mess that you could ever imagine, because I have no idea what I'm doing. I've seen a lot of sheds being built. I couldn't build one if my life depended on it. Now, it's not that I couldn't possibly learn, but I don't have enough years left of my life to want to do that. But I mean, but we do that to dealers in the industry. And it's just oftentimes it's the way it's always been done. But when and it's the metal building industry too. It's not just sheds. I think it's the way that it worked before, that, hey, especially with the families that got involved with buildings, it's like, okay, well, how about you take the sales management role, and I'll take this role. And it's just, I think it comes down to putting the right person in the right position. Because again, so to me, it would be just as crazy to put me as a shop manager as it would be to put someone who hasn't been successful selling sheds in a sales management position. But we see it all the time. It's interesting to me in this industry, but I think the industry is catching on. I've heard other inklings of companies saying, we're going to look at who we have training our dealers differently, because it's not going to work the way it worked 5 years ago. It's not. I've said it. I put an ad I put a post, not even an ad, just a post in a few marketplace groups, and I couldn't even keep up with the people. And I could go back and prove that this happened. I'd never delete Facebook messages. It is not that way anymore. So I think some people might have gotten into the industry around that time I did, and it was easier and they figured it out. But today, I don't think it's going to work for folks to not, I'm all about that training. And there's so many great people in this industry right now that are so willing to help.
Yeah.
And, that it's, it isn't that maybe they weren't around 7 years ago, but I didn't know they were around. So how could I reach out to them? But yeah, I think
just
that's
a little story that kind of went when we started here. When we came here, we had like 21 lots, I think, when my father-in-law bought the business out, and he was like, let's grow it. He was ready to go. And we took off, and we ended up with 41 lots. And, maybe 2 years later. And then, we just got to looking at it and thinking about it, and, studying the numbers, what we was getting. And it's like, the results ain't here that what we should have, and it was back, you could still basically put a shed lot on the corner, I guess at that time, we thought, and make it go. So we just started eliminating lots that weren't productive, and moving our inventory to the more productive lots. And man, we had amazing success. At that point, our sales went up with less inventory, and on and on. And that was really, there's no great science to that, but that was really happened for us. And so we're at a little over 20 lots currently, so we don't have to have 40 something lots to be productive, but 20 productive lots instead of 41 lots being not so productive.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we've talked about that. I don't know if you know Donnie Campbell, but Donnie, the first time I met him was up in Washington State, and he was talking to the owner of the plant, and we were having a conversation, and he said to Doug, he said, I told you only need one of her. And he's pointing at me, and I was like, what are they talking about? And he said, you only need one of her, because she'll carry the state for you, which I did. But here's the problem with that. In my mind, I'm like, well, why can't let's teach them, let's give everybody else the tools too. And certainly on our mission, Atlee, let's be completely transparent. With Burnett, we want to be a leader in this industry, and I hope that other companies will follow with training, because we're going to do what we need to do for our dealers, but I hope other companies will listen and follow and see the results over time that, if they implement changes, good things will happen, and then the sales force can grow.
Training into it, and let's see what results we can get, with what we have.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm super excited about our future going forward, and we're excited to have Shedgal on our team. It's exciting.
Well, yeah, and I appreciate that, and I told you I had a
on this show, but you got it anyway.
What's that? Well, hey, I mean, you paid me to be on here, so I said, okay, I'll do it. And Shannon said he's asked you like 40 times, and you said no, and you paid me for you to be on here. So I'm like, that's really cool. I didn't know guests were paying us money, but hey, whatever. So that's a joke, people.
Just for the record, I did not pay Susan to get on.
Well,
so good friends for a while though. We met 4 years ago, and I call him up, I text him, and then he lives in Metropolis, which is 20 minutes from my in-laws' place, and so there's been many times that I go out there and we text each other. All right, where are we meeting for breakfast? And we just go. Just chill out.
Shannon is a good guy, and it was interesting before we started when I heard him say, that you guys will be friends forever, and it's the exact same thing he had told me, without you being in earshot. And he is a good guy, and Deanna is absolutely fantastic. And I have to tell you, when they were with me and I was with Sam Byler, and we spent a few days together a few months ago, I'm telling you, that was one of the funnest few days of my life. I mean, we were in Burger King. I offered some gal in there a job because she was so great selling the burger. And
hey, that's the second story I've heard, actually, now that you say that, about hiring right out of Burger King.
Well, I've heard another one about hiring out of McDonald's.
I don't know what Burger King it has in correlation with Sheds, but that's the second person I've heard about hiring out.
Well, it was so funny, this gal in Burger King, because she sold us cookies that none of us wanted. I mean, we all agreed to take the cookies, but none of us wanted cookies. And I was like, you really need to come work for me. And she's like, hey, I'll come to work for you as long as you'll pay me more than they pay me here. And I mean, we laughed so hard. She was great. She was great. And she gave Sam a free crown from Burger King, so that was special.
It's crazy too, because the cookies was the reason the other guy hired out of Burger King as well.
You have got to be kidding me.
I'm serious. I can give you the guy's number and let you call him and talk to him. It was all over cookies.
That's so funny. Well, apparently their best salespeople at Burger King, no, they're the ones that are pushing the cookies.
Nothing on Burger King, but I've never liked Burger King, and so when he started talking to me about it and explained to me, he said, I hired this guy last week out of Burger King. And I was like, what was you doing at Burger King? I'm like, there's better places to eat. And he said, oh, but the cookies, you got to know the cookies. I'm like, I'll have to take your word for it, I guess, because I've never been there and tried the cookies. So that's pretty funny.
That is so funny. What do you look forward to most in the industry over the next, we all know in this industry there's ups and downs. That's with any business. I mean, there are times that are easier than others. But what do you look forward to in the future? What are you looking forward to?
My dream, I guess, is that we together can substantially grow the business. And I guess that would be anybody's dream, and that's not very specific, but I'm looking for the opportunity to grow the business. I feel like it's very evident that I can't do it on my own. So you got to have people in place. We kind of already talked about that, but you got to have people in place that have the ability. And I'll say this, my father-in-law's talked to me, and he talked to a man in another very large shed business in the industry. And he was talking to him about his growth of his business and the success they've had. And the man spoke up and said, it wasn't me. I didn't do this. He said it was the people I had around me.
Yes.
You gotta recognize that. You gotta understand that it's not an individual that grows. Most generally, it's not an individual that grows the business or makes it a success, but it's in the team and the people that you can put around you.
I 100% agree. And, for the folks out there that are completely confused as to what's going on, Shedgal, I have my Shedgal business, and we're going to be opening 4. They're not super centers. They're not mega lots. You can call them whatever you want. I haven't found the right word for them yet, but 4 within 30 days. And it's, across the country. And I expect my dealerships to grow. I'd like to have 10, within 24 months. I was presented with an opportunity by Atlee and Burnett Affordable Buildings to come in and work with training the dealers and trying some different things. And I couldn't be more thrilled. I could not be more thrilled to be here. I was, and I don't know if I've said this to you, Atlee, but I was presented with prior to that a couple of other opportunities. And financially, I mean, yeah, the but it wasn't the right position. I mean, it wasn't the right place for me, not the position, because you're the first one that has said we're open to change. And I think if people are listening out here, please be open to change and ideas. We get so closed off on that it's our way or no way, and I've been accused of that myself, and I reflect on that. I am a sponge of information. I just want to gain information from others, take what works and share it with others. But I think we're going to see wonderful changes overall in this industry in the next few years, and on the RTO side too, and training and different things, and being more cohesive with our haulers and the people at the plant, the dealers working together, and I see great things coming in the industry, and I love this industry, and it's a shed, for crying out loud. And fortunately, 7 years ago, I had a really bad experience buying one, and here we are today, and I'm interviewing Atlee. So
Made you a believer out of it.
So, well, before we wrap up here, I'm gonna ask you a couple of flash questions, as I like to do, and so however you answer is fine. If money were not an issue and you could go anywhere tomorrow in the world for a vacation, where would you go?
Oh, of course, that's a hard one, you might say, but there's 2 places that we have went and we thoroughly enjoy. And every other year, my parents take us and my siblings, all of us, to Colorado, and we've found a place out there we absolutely flat out, more than any other place, we love Lake City, Colorado, and we went there probably half a dozen times. The main reason we like it there is because you can take your ATVs, your side-by-sides, and you can ride them right there in town. You can ride
how fun.
Downtown to the barbecue place, to the pizza place, to it's just a little community town. But there you can ride from there. There's a 45-mile loop. It's called the Alpine Loop, and it goes out of one side end of town there, and it makes a loop over 2 mountain passes, Cinnamon Pass and Engineer Pass, at both 14,000 feet, and circle back around and come back in the other end of town. You can do it if you're just driving like an idiot. You can do it in about 2.5 hours probably, but we make a 6-hour trip out of it about every time we do it. And and we just love that place. It's just a real laid-back town. You can do fly fishing there. We've done fly fishing, guided fishing trips, and I had my first bear encounter in person while we was there.
All right, I can skip that part. No, I don't want to encounter any bears.
No, that was down a rabbit trail there, but yeah, that's fun. Or we love to go to Florida, so we've done that a couple different times. So
fun. So, and it's interesting because one Florida being a little more tropical and beachy, and then Colorado being more the mountains and open air. I love that. Well, I know the answer to the next question. I just want to have you confirm that I'm correct. So I was going to ask you if money wasn't an issue and you could buy any vehicle out there what that would be, but I know it would be a red Ford F-150. Is that correct?
Oh my goodness. Susan, I just don't know where you come up with that one, but I'm not a Ford guy.
It's a little Ford Chevy debate,
Yeah.
Okay, all kidding aside, folks, he might tease me behind my back about my red Ford F-150, but Atlee, if money were not an issue and you could drive any vehicle in the world, what would you drive?
I guess I have to say, because I'm not a rich guy, but I'm just still a GM guy, and I like to drive my GM.
Yep. Well, and it is a beautiful GM.
And that brings up that question, you're just talking about the Ford GM thing. There's just a few things, and you got to have, I'll say this little tidbit, you got to have fun with those people around you. So if you got your personnel, your staff in your office, you got to have points to argue throughout the day and throughout the week. And it's Ford and Chevy here. We've got one guy that's a Ford guy all the way, and all the rest of us are GM until Susan came along. And so she joined the Ford crew. And then you also got the iPhone versus Android.
That's right.
We were all
Team Android.
Yeah, I go for the iPhone here, But we were all iPhone people with the exception of one guy here, and his name is Troy. I'll just call him out. And Susan shows up, and guess what? I wasn't here on the job. Where was I, Susan? I went to Kentucky.
That's right. You were in Kentucky,
Susan came here for her first when she was moving here, and guess what? Troy texted me, and just out of the clear blue said, "I'm not the only Android person here no more. She's a good one. She's Android all the way." So I just threw that in there because you got to have fun. It's just things. We even put it on our the dry race board. All the things. This versus, Ford versus GM, and we put our votes up there. It's just something to have fun.
I love it. And I called it Chevy, but I stand corrected. GM.
They're basically the same.
Yeah, I love it. That's great. Before we finish this, and this has been super fun, and I really appreciate your time. Before we wrap this up, do you have any questions for me?
The only one that comes to mind right offhand is what were the biggest surprises to you or surprise to you once you moved to Arkansas? I mean, what come to you as a big surprise, different from where you was at in Arizona, where all you've been, I guess?
Yeah, the bugs.
The bugs. And you used to be on Facebook not telling you about that too.
No, I know. No, I think maybe the biggest thing in all seriousness is the people are very, very friendly. And I was telling someone earlier today, it's not that people in Phoenix or Surprise, Arizona, where I was, aren't friendly. It's very difficult to connect because it's so big. And here, like, we went to a little place down the street to grab something to drink the other night, and like the gal that took our order actually asked our names. And we were in the Walmart parking lot, and we were in Walmart, and they complimented us on our nice accents, and someone else said hi, and I'm like, that has surprised me because I'm not used to it, but it's a very pleasant surprise. So, and the bugs are fine. I don't think you have anything more vicious here than we had in Phoenix. And as far as the humidity, in Arizona right now, when it's 113, 115, I'd be in my air-conditioned office, and here I'm in my air-conditioned office, so we're good. I'm very glad to be here.
Awesome. We're happy that you're here.
Wonderful. Well, thank you all for listening and watching. I'm assuming that you made it to the end of this week's Shed Geek podcast, hosted by me, Susan the Shedgal. I want to thank Atlee. Atlee, I appreciate you very much. I appreciate you taking the time out of your day to be with us today. And we will see you all very soon.
Hey, this is Mo Lunsford in sunny Union Grove, North Carolina, and we want to say thank you to all the guests and listeners.